Hello, hello, my listeners. Today I have a student and a wonderful surprise for you coming on today, Joe Sova. And I'm bringing him on because he was a student inside of my program, In Demand Signature Speech. And when he did a speaker showcase, which we're going to talk a little bit more about, I just knew that I had to have him on the show. So let's get on to the show.
You're listening to Be in Demand, the podcast for honest advice, inspiring stories, and ideas for growing your business by leveraging the expert that you are. I'm your host, Laurie-Ann Murabito, business mentor, and I'm also a reformed painfully shy girl, red wine lover, and exercise enthusiast. Join me as I share how being positioned as the expert in your industry, even if it's a busy one, will help you stand out and be the one in demand to hire and work with.
So, Joe, thanks for joining me today, and just kind of give the audience a little bit, a little tasting of what your business is like, or what your business is.
Yeah, thank you, Laurie-Ann, for having me. This is fun. So exciting stuff. But yeah, with my business, I've been an entrepreneur for 20 plus years myself, working with other entrepreneurs, and so that's been in a variety of ways. But today, the way I use that experience is to help build out processes and systems, hiring, and really building those teams so that the business owner or the entrepreneur can delegate all the stuff they don't enjoy and accelerate what they do enjoy and lead to actually liking their business and not dealing with all the details. So that's what I do in a variety of ways. And it's fun. I love working with entrepreneurs, talking business. So this is a good talk.
Yeah, wonderful. So, as I kind of shared with people in the beginning that you're one of my students inside In Demand Signature Speech. But you had speaking experience, you have speaking experience. And even before you joined the program, you were already comfortable on camera and speaking. But you also shared with me during the program, but you sort of got a little nervous, what am I going to say? Can you talk more about that? Because that's a big problem that a lot of people have.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. I've done hundreds of podcast episodes myself, and I'm comfortable behind a microphone. I've spoken in front of crowds. I remember back, in high school, I was, doing speech and stuff. So it doesn't faze me in the act of being in front of people. But through the years, we kind of psych ourselves out of things. And as I got out of the habit of actually getting out there and being in front of people, it was more or less like, okay, if I'm going to do this professionally or be in front of a crowd that's not necessarily my own, on my podcast, I can talk about whatever I want because it's my podcast. But if I'm going to be either virtually or in person in front of people, what am I going to say? And how am I going to tailor that to that audience? And that's where the confusion or it's almost, it's kind of like a form of procrastination, right? So we get in our own head about, well, I don't know what to say, so I'm just not going to say anything. I'm not going to even ask to be a speaker anywhere. And so that's where things kind of stop for me. If somebody would approach me, I'd say, yeah, I'll do it. But that doesn't happen, right? Nobody's just randomly coming up to us and saying, hey, let's have you speak at this event or whatever the case is. And so I didn't know, I wasn't comfortable reaching out because I didn't have any sort of formal speech. And when I thought before your program, when I thought of, okay, what does this have to look like? It was a little daunting, honestly. And we all have enough going on every day. And I know I did, where I didn't want to take the time to actually try to iron that out on my own because I wouldn't even know where to start. So that's where that kind of comes from, is just the not knowing leads to procrastination, and then you never do it. And so after I go through your program, obviously that changed and I got a structure around that. And since then it's, things are just kind of snowballing and coming into play, which is fun to see. And that builds more confidence going forward.
Yeah. We'll have to talk about that confidence stuff. But it does snowball. You give a good presentation, and then your audience raves about you. They remember you. They refer you. They hire you. So how are you using speaking, or how do you plan on using speaking now in your business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I see it as a really valuable tool to, one, do something that I enjoy because I think it's fun to do things like that. But two, it's another angle to get that message out there, that people need to hear. And, we hear all the regular stuff, do Facebook ads or whatever, right? And that stuff's great. It works. But this is almost I don't want to call it an untapped market, but there's, the perception that you have to be a professional speaker to go out there and do these things. And you don't. You can be, the regular Joe here and get out there and actually do these events and get in front of people that might not listen to podcasts or might not have found you online, whatever it is, right? So you can find the events that are your target markets. You're not necessarily talking to random people, but you can tailor that to what your target market would want to hear, and you'll run into new people. So that's how I plan to use it, is a marketing tool, another avenue. And again, as we talk in your program, you can take some of that experience and even footage and repurpose that into a podcast or something like that, and put it into other things. Even just a photo of you in front of a group of people, right? That brings social proof of what you can do and gets people's minds turning. So that's how I plan to use it. And am currently, even since just a short while ago of ending your program, I've already booked a couple in-person and virtual events, which is exciting. So
Let's talk about those bookings. How did that happen?
um, it's funny because it seems almost I said earlier, things don't just show up, and these almost seem to do that. But I really think that's a part of my confidence in just putting it out there, right? So really one was through a friend who I've known, and he just kind of asked me, he's like, hey, do you want to do this? And it was after I started taking your class, really. So I don't know, there was some kind of mystical connection there that he picked up on. And then another was through an employee of mine is a member of a local organization, and we were just chatting, and I was saying, these are things I'm going to be doing. And again, I just put it out there, and oh my gosh, I'll ask this group, and lo and behold, they've got a monthly meeting of around 50 people, and I'll get to go in front of them here shortly. So, those things, when you put it out there, it does start to happen, because you have that intention and that feeling of, yes, I can do this. And before, again, before your class, I was comfortable doing that, but I didn't have, that confidence is really the word that I would say that I had value to bring in that sort of environment. One-to-one, or again, just kind of rambling on my own stuff. I can do that, but I wasn't comfortable approaching people, or really if somebody would have approached me, I would have stressed out thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to put this together? What am I going to talk about? Is this going to be good enough? And it would have been a huge hassle. So for one event I did recently, it was a virtual event that you had connected me with. It went pretty smooth, honestly. And the process of putting my stuff together was light and easy, which was awesome. So it was the opposite of what I expected before. So
Okay, two things. Let's talk about the confidence, because that's something that I hear a lot from a lot of my clients and my students, is that they just, even if they would have qualified themselves as saying, like, I'm a shy person, I'm scared of public speaking, but once they gave their first, they were like, oh yeah, I was confident going out there. I wasn't like nothing. I just went out there and just felt like I'd been doing this for years.
yeah. So what I learned from you, and you have been speaking for years professionally and all that. So what I learned from you and from the class that you put us through is well, it's not just a class; it's really a full program. But what I learned there is it got me prepared, and that was the biggest thing. And confidence comes from knowing, right? So if you don't know, then you're unsure, and that's reflected in you. And again, you stress out, and you're not sure what you're going to say. But the confidence that came to me is that, okay, now I have a structure. I have an organized plan as to what I'm going to discuss. If the meeting goes long or if the meeting goes short, I was prepared for that based on what you taught us. And so I felt really good. And again, I didn't stress out putting all kinds of hours and hours and hours. I put time into creating the speech, obviously, but it wasn't anything that would have been as far as stressfulness before learning what I learned. And so that builds that confidence that, yes, I have what I need. Now, the second part of that which we were talking about before here, we started recording, that I think is important to share, is when you see others speaking, you start to notice these things like, okay, this person maybe wasn't as prepared as I was in certain ways, or this person is kind of taking this, faux pas or whatever it is, and they don't even realize it, right? And they're good people, and they might know their material, and that's where I would have been really before going through your program. You don't know what you don't know, but now that I know that stuff, I can recognize it in others. That builds my confidence. Like, okay, I'm in the upper echelon here of these, 10 to 15 speakers. Some of them have been doing this professionally even longer than myself, but I'm presenting myself even more professionally than they are while having a good time. And so it's not some robotic thing where I'm locked into something, and I can have fun and enjoy it. At the same time, be confident that I've got every tool I need to knock this out of the park and provide that value. And that's the whole reason I'm showing up anyway.
Yeah, yeah, I love all of that. It's like I want to like pick parts of that apart. But as a speaker, it does make you a different audience member. And you do, like, while you're starting to watch other speakers, you're picking out like, I like this, I don't like that. As a speaker, I know I've been to events with a bunch of like business and leadership coaches. And when a speaker is done, like people will look at me and say, so what did you think? And like, you're going to see things differently now. And I love how you just like that structure gives you that confidence and you're just going to show up. And, like things happen. Like one of the things that you heard me say over and over again, speaking is, it's a little bit of theater, it's a little bit of art, it's a little bit of performance. It's a lot sometimes of improv.
Yeah.
Because you just never know.
Yeah.
If a meeting planner is going to come up to you and say, I need you to cut your speech by 15 minutes, and your job, I always say like the responsibility of the speaker is to make the meeting planner or whoever brought you in, like look like a rock star. So to be able to, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
I know exactly what section to take out.
So in my, so I did a virtual event that you're aware of, and my phone rang. So I'm on the computer, and
Hold on a second, because
Sure.
this is the speaker showcase that we've kind of like alluded to. And I just want to explain to people what a speaker showcase is. It's really, it's not that it's a themed conference or meeting, but it'll be a bunch of different speakers who are basically just speaking on a variety of topics. I kind of like word it as like, it's your opportunity to kind of like show off for 15 minutes. And I saw the opportunity and just shared it with the group because I wanted you guys to practice just pitching yourself, filling out the application, and 2 of you got picked. You being one of them. Go on.
Yeah. So, and that, honestly, that process alone, so I'll circle back to the story, but that process alone of just doing that event, which, it wasn't some globalized event or anything, but even if it was a small, quote unquote, small event, just the process of submitting myself as an applicant, filling out my bio, like those little things you don't even think about. Just getting that repetition of, wow, okay, so this is what it's like to do this, that helps. And now I'm more confident going in next time as well. So during the event, 2 things really happened. One is my phone went off, and my phone is tied to my computer. And so, obviously it's not just a vibrating thing in the back. It's the whole ringer is showing up on my computer. I'm like, whatever. And so I was confident enough, though, going through it in that improv that you teach us, I blew it off. It wasn't a big deal. I just kind of made a little joke and shut off my phone and moved on with my speech. It didn't rattle me at all. So that sort of thing is back to that confidence that I learned through just being prepared and organized. I could go right back to, the point. I don't have it written out word for word, but I went right back to the spot of my notes where I picked up and went from there. The other thing was, those little things that you don't know from, for example, I do my own podcast, but I don't have somebody on the side telling me, you got 5 minutes left, you got 3 minutes left, you got 2 minutes left. I never experienced that before. So going through, again, just kind of a random event that was a great learning experience. I encourage anybody to do that that's interested in this kind of a thing and promoting themselves, because you get those little things like that you're like, okay, if I'm on stage in front of 100 people, now I've experienced that, and it's like no big deal, right? So the more you do it, the more you learn, and the better you present yourself in front of potential clients.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing I want to talk about is like having the signature speech. And for those who are listening who, or even watching this on YouTube, a signature speech is essentially the same speech that you're giving over and over and over again. It's kind of like telling a story, and you tell the same story over and over again. You just get really good at telling that story. And so that people don't think, well, you're telling the same speech to a bunch of, like different audiences, but I teach people how to customize it so that the audience believes and feels that you wrote that speech just for them, but you get really good at giving that speech. Tell us about like how that is helping you.
Yeah, I back to that stress level and not being worried about the speeches. So again, in the past, if I was presenting, I've got 3 events coming up. If I was presenting at 3 events in my head, I would say, well, I've got to come up with 3 different speeches, and I've got to do things differently. Not the case at all. You teach us that method where you've got things that you can kind of plug and play and customize for each one, but it's not rewriting the entire thing. So realistically, I haven't even, I've got an event coming up in 2 weeks, and I'm just going to use the same one I just used. And it's so simple. Again, I might tailor a couple stories or something, and you tweak some things, but I'm not going back to the drawing board. I'm not going back to do all kinds of research. It's just, it's light, it's easy. And that makes it more fun. And that will show when I'm in front of the audience as well, because now, again, I've got that repetition. I know what's going to kind of land and what's not from my previous experience, and that'll just continue to build. And then I can add new things as I see fit. But yeah, I feel even back to that same word, that more confidence going in because I've already done it, and I can just use that same thing. And now this next event is my target audience. So you mentioned that last event was more just speakers kind of, getting more practice reps essentially in front of each other and getting feedback and things like that, which was fun. This next one is entrepreneurs and those people that I help. And I feel great going in front of them. And honestly, I could go there today and I wouldn't have to rewrite that speech at all if I didn't want to. So it's, yeah, I don't want to call it magic, but it's magic, and it works wonders for the confidence and the stress because I'm not even worried about it.
Yeah, and then you can be, one of the things that I say to people is like, you get ready to be ready, because then a meeting planner or, like even like your local chamber or a local organization that you belong to, they can call you and say, like, our speaker backed out tonight. Are you available? And yeah, you're making them look good. You make you look good,
Yeah.
and you've got the opportunity to like, hey, I'm giving my 30, 45, like 60-minute presentation, but it's already done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you,
And the other thing I'll mention with that is, before going through your program, the story I would have in my head is, okay, I have to have a different speech because boy, it's going to look really bad if I tell the same speech at 2 different places. And now I'm like, well, that's not the case at all. There's probably going to be no, then maybe there's 1 or 2 people. They're not even going to remember what I said last time. And so I have this format, again, the way you teach us to tweak it as needed. Nobody would even recognize that it's the same format, same speech or any of that. And I feel good about that going in because these events are about 2 weeks apart coming up. And yeah, I'm going to use virtually the same thing back to back, and it'll be awesome. I'll love it.
yeah, and when you tell good stories, people are going to hope that you're telling. Are you going to tell that story again?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
100%.
you're gonna start to experience that. And one of the things that I teach inside the program is, and if you can speak to this as well, is how you convert the audience, how you speak, you tell stories that really speak to the objections. That your audience member is either thinking, they're feeling, or maybe just even subconsciously like, wow, I didn't even think of that. Because that's the whole point. I mean, that's why one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the program is because I want people to like be able to convert the audience.
Yeah.
Not just tell a good story.
Yeah, it's interesting, Laurie-Ann, where again, especially with online entrepreneurs, the thought is, convert and ads and all this stuff. But again, there's a whole another market here with either virtually or in person giving speeches and being on stage. And on stage can mean different things, right? It doesn't have to be on a stage. It can be in front of a local group. It can be in front of a Zoom meeting, whatever it is. And so the way you, again, let us structure our content is to really think of those things ahead of time and say, okay, I'm going to structure this story here basically on purpose and then lead that into covering what objections they would have. And again, the work we put in ahead of time takes away the work later because we've already got those objections laid out and we can kind of mix and match those depending on the event. And so that's the power of what you teach really is that it's customizable and flexible enough, yet we're not reinventing the wheel where it's, oh my gosh, I've got to think of new objections this time because this is a different audience. Not necessarily. You can really use that same material, plug it in again, put your own spin on it, and you're leading them. Part of sales is always be leading, right? We know that, and so you can lead them down the path you want them to go. So you have an end result, right? I'm not giving a speech to waste my time or their time or just right. I do enjoy it, but I'm giving that speech back to what we started the conversation with, to market myself, to say, hey, entrepreneurs, if you need to build your team and hire somebody, I'm your guy. That's ultimately what I want to do. And I can place the proper stories within the context of the speech to lead to that point where they're thinking now, okay, he's the guy. Yeah, I never thought of it this way. Now, if I need that, I'm going to go with him. And so that's the power of getting in front of people. That's the power of what you teach us and the way we can structure that. And it just leads them down a natural path. It's not robotic. It's not anything like that. So hopefully that answers the question that you were looking for there.
Yeah, thank you. I just love talking about all things speaking and the different forms of speaking and how we can use it in our business and just to get seen by the right people. Because just like you said, there's a lot of people out there that are teaching and jumping into programs like about Facebook ads and thinking the Facebook ads is what's going to help them grow their business. But you don't know who's looking at the ad. You don't know if they're actually an ideal client. Facebook's got a lot of data on people, but to be able to get hired by either somebody who runs a high-end mastermind, who runs a chamber, an association, that you're walking in there and you're speaking to a pre-qualified audience that are all these could be all either potential clients or they're going to become referral people for you who know people who are your ideal clients.
Yeah. And it's social proof, right? So, after I do these, I can throw that on my website. I can just talk about it. Or, and you talk about this in the program, I already know there will be people in the audience that will see that and say, we need you to speak at our event, right? There's back to that snowball effect. But it's that social proof confidence build. Yeah. I spoke in front of X number of people and, yes, I have what I do work. Clearly that means what I do works, right? So it's just that compound effect of what can come out of speaking in front of people is, it's a gold mine, really.
Wonderful. Just a couple of other questions. And one is, was there anything surprising that you learned inside the program?
Oh, that's a good question. Some of it I touched on already as far as that I don't have to have a new speech every time. I didn't even, it's common sense now that I think about it, but I didn't realize it at the time. So, that was a little surprising when we were putting it together. I don't want to give away your secrets and things like that, but there are some things in there about, for example, the way you start the speech. A lot of people will do something like, hello out there, or hey, my name's, X, Y, and they start with these basically irrelevant banter, and you're losing people right away. And that's something, again, you like to say, Laurie-Ann, that even as a newbie coming through your program, you'll appear as a professional speaker after it. And that's, I'm here to tell you that's true, because those little things add up throughout the speech. And by the end of it, if you have these 10 little things that a new person wouldn't know until they do 10, 20, 30 speeches, maybe they figure that out on their own, but it took a long time, right? So you go through your program and you learn it off the bat, you're already elevating yourself up. And so that was surprising, all those little components of of giving a speech. It's not a matter of just getting up there and throwing out some words. It's a matter of really organizing and structuring it the right way so that it has maximum impact. And if you're going to get in front of 5, 10, 50, 100 plus people, you want to have maximum impact, right? So there's yeah. So I veered off a little bit there, but it was just surprising to me how those little components make such a big deal in the presentation, in the way that that message is communicated, and it matters. It really matters.
It really does. Like all those little things, yes. And yes, that the beginning 30 seconds, like you got to grab people's attention. Otherwise, yep, it's like people are pulling out their phones.
Yeah,
But
yeah, and the way to do that is what is significant, right, and important, because you can grab attention different ways. But if you're trying a way and you might think you're grabbing attention, but it's the wrong way, it's not the way to do it, you might not even realize it, but you're losing people right away. And like you said, they'll grab their phones and all that stuff. So you taught us ways to grab the attention that I didn't realize was important, versus maybe what's thought of as common out there. Like, again, starting the speech with, "Hi, I'm Joe Sova," and blah, 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 blah. Nobody cares, right?
yeah, they don't care yet.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, we got to make them care.
Yes.
Who do you think speaking's good for?
Who is speaking good for? If somebody out there wants to grow their business, and it can be a nail salon, it can be an online entrepreneur, it can be anybody in between, right? If you're looking, let's face it, as entrepreneurs, and that's who I talk to. So I'm not sure who all your audience is watching this or not, but I'm assuming most will be an entrepreneur type.
Yeah, same.
If you're an entrepreneur, your goal is to grow. That's the basic of everything, right? You want to grow. Because you're never staying in one spot. You're either going backwards or you're going forwards. So, if you want to do that, speaking is a platform, and it simply makes sense. There's so much attention out there that online and all the stuff that is taught. Again, it's a crowded market, no matter what industry you're in. And so if you can utilize speaking, again, you're in front of an audience that is captive. They're there. They're likely paying to be there. They want to hear you. and so it just makes sense. So yeah, it's a generalized answer to your question. But if you're an entrepreneur that is looking to add relevancy, add customers, revenue, income, profit, fun, all the above, cachet or the social proof, if you're looking for any of that, you're somebody who should be speaking.
Yeah, get into that speaking, position, because it not only does it, give you brand awareness, but it just, it lets people, it attracts the right people, along with pushing away the wrong people for you as well. And it's such an untapped market. I mean, there's, you've heard me say there's 7,500 speaking opportunities every single day. That's 7,500 meeting planners that are looking for the right person. And you're doing them a favor by, one, being good on the platform, whatever that platform is, and also just reaching out to them.
Yeah. And that's another thing that I don't think the general entrepreneur understands is that if somebody's putting on an event, they need help, right? They need people there, and they need help. And the easier you can make that, this is something you taught us, the easier you can make that, as far as, hey, yeah, I'm available. What can I do? Or letting them know, like you said earlier, letting them know that, hey, if somebody cancels, I'm available. Those types of things, like the easier you can make it on people, they're going to love you. And then they will refer you to other people as well. And that's something that I didn't recognize prior to going through your program. But it's really just understanding that they have a job to do as far as put on these events. Filling that time isn't always easy. And so the easier you make it, the more likely you'll get in front of that audience.
And then get rebooked again
Yep.
and again. Great. Do you have any advice, last closing advice for people who are on the fence for in-demand signature speech?
Well, we covered a lot of what by now they should be ready to go in, but If you're on the fence, just think about what your ultimate goal is, right? Do you want, what's your vision? What do you want to do next? Do you want to grow? And I think the majority of people are probably a little more shy than I am about speaking in front of people. Um, uh, but understand that if you don't put yourself out there, your business will not be out there, right? It's that simple. So take advantage of an untapped market. Don't go in as a rookie, right? You wouldn't go in, you wouldn't open a pizza restaurant without ever making a pizza, right? You would get some instruction on how to do that. So Laurie-Ann is the best. She clearly has the experience and she knows her stuff. There's really no reason to not get that coach, right? I mean, Tiger Woods has a swing coach, best golfer of all time, and he still has a swing coach. So why would you not use somebody who's been there before, who knows what to do, and who can guide you? It just makes sense, right? And the investment you put in the program will pay for itself, whether you get paid speaking or get clients from speaking or just get that confidence to put yourself out there. That investment pays for itself easily, very, very quickly.
Spoken like a great business coach. Also, there's some. I could hear a lot of business advice in there too, which is that's what you do.
Yeah.
So, if you would share with my listeners, like where they can find more information about you, your programs, your podcast.
Yeah. So website, joesovatraining.com. So just my name, then training.com. That's the best place. So the podcast will be on there. We've got some free resources and things for that if people want to build their teams and hire employees, things like that. That's the best place. And then, of course, Facebook and Instagram, all the fun places. But check out the website, joesovatraining.com. That's the best place.
And I'll make sure that is down in the show notes. But thank you, Joe, for joining me today and having this discussion. And, I'm just so excited for you and how this is just snowballing. I know I keep using that word, but how it's just snowballing for you. It's just going to turn into, it's another event, another event, another event.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Laurie-Ann, for all you've done. And thanks for having me on the show. This is fun.
Thank you.